There's a Senate hearing scheduled tomorrow on a subject of some importance to millions of Americans. But with the government shut down, it's not clear that the Senate Committee on Government Affairs will be able to pay for a stenographer to record the event. The hearing involves the Federal Disability Insurance Program, which could become the first government benefits program to run out of money. When it began back in the 1950s, it was envisioned as a small program to assist people who were unable to work because of illness or injury. Today, it serves nearly 12 million people, up 20% in the last 6 years, and has a budget of $135 billion. That's more than the government spent last year on the Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department, and the Labor Department combined. It's been called a secret welfare system with its own disability industrial complex, a system ravaged by waste and fraud. A lot of people want to know what's going on, especially Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma.
Go read the statute. If there's any job in the economy you can perform, you are not eligible for disability. That's pretty clear. So where'd all those disabled people come from?
The Social Security Administration, which runs the disability program, says the explosive surge is due to aging baby boomers and the lingering effects of a bad economy. But Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, the ranking Republican on the Senate Subcommittee for Investigations, who is also a physician, says it's more complicated than that. Last year, his staff randomly selected hundreds of disability files and found that 25% of them should never have been approved. Another 20%, he said, were highly questionable.
If all these people are disabled that apply, I want them all to get it. And then we need to figure out how we're going to fund it. But my investigation tells me, and my common sense tells me, that we've got a system that's being gamed pretty big right now.
And by a lot of different people exploiting a vulnerable system.
Social Security disability benefits denied?
Coburn says you need look no further than the commercials of disability lawyers trolling for new clients.
I fix problems.
Namely, the 2/3 of the people who have already applied for disability and been rejected.
I was denied, but the McMahon law firm got me approved.
There's not much to lose, really. It doesn't cost you anything unless you win the appeal, and the lawyers collect from the federal government.
If the American public knew what was going on in our system, half would be outraged and the other half would apply for benefits.
Marilyn Zahm and Randy Fry are two of the country's 1,500 disability judges. They are also the president and vice president of the Association of Administrative Law Judges. They're each expected to read, hear, and decide up to 700 appeals a year to clear a backlog of nearly 1 million cases. They say disability lawyers have flooded the system with cases that shouldn't be there.
In 1971, fewer than 20% of claimants were represented. Now, over 80% of claimants are represented by attorneys or representatives.
Why do you think there's so many more lawyers involved in this than there used to be?
It's lucrative.
Follow the money.
Last year, the Social Security Administration paid $1 billion to claimants' lawyers out of its cash-strapped disability trust fund. The biggest chunk, $70 million, went to Binder & Binder, the largest disability firm in the country. Lawyer Jennifer Lazar and Jessica White work for Binder & Binder, representing clients in front of disability judges from New Hampshire to West Virginia.
I call it a legal factory because that's all it is. I mean, they have figured out the system and they've made it into a huge national firm that makes millions of dollars a year on Social Security disability.
I was hired at the end of 2008 and business was booming because the economy was so bad. We had a lot of people who their unemployment ran out and this was the next step.
If you're unable to find a job and you have any type of physical issue, then it really becomes a last-ditch effort because the job market is so bad.
Many of the cases they handled involved ailments with subjective symptoms like backache, depression, and fibromyalgia, which is joint and muscle pain along with chronic fatigue. Hard to prove you've got it.
Yes. There's no diagnostic testing for it, so.
Hard to deny you don't have it.
Correct.
Out of the hundreds of people that you represented, how many of these cases involve strong cases for disability?
Strong cases, I would say maybe 30 to 40%. And then I would say half of my cases were not deserving of disability.
How many of them ultimately ended up getting benefits?
Half.
We'll deal with the government
You have enough to worry about.
We tried repeatedly to reach Binder and Binder for comment, but our phone calls were not returned.
We ought to err on the side of somebody being potentially disabled, and we have a ton of people in our country that are. But what's coming about now with where we are is the very people who are truly disabled, because we have so many scallywags in the system, are going to get hurt severely when this trust fund runs out of money.
Senator Coburn says disability payments are now propping up the economy in some of the poorest regions in the country, which is why he sent his investigators to the border area of Kentucky and West Virginia. More than 250,000 people in this area are on disability, 10 to 15% of the population, about 3 times the national average. Jennifer Griffith and Sarah Carver processed disability claims at the Social Security Regional Office in Huntington, West Virginia. How important are disability checks to people in this part of the country?
They're a vital part of our economy. A lot of people depend on them to survive.
To see it firsthand, they suggested we come back right after the disability checks went out. And we did, to find crowds and traffic jams.
You avoid the pharmacy. You avoid Walmart. You avoid, restaurants, because it's just...
Any grocery stores.
Grocery stores. It's just extremely crowded. Everybody's received their benefits. Let's go shopping.
Not everyone in the throngs we saw is on disability, but Jennifer Griffith and Sarah Carver say there's no question that a lot of them are and probably shouldn't be.
We have a lot of people who have exhausted their unemployment checks and have moved on to Social Security disability.
This is sort of a bridge between unemployment and collecting Social Security.
Generally, yes.
Are they disabled?
Not always, no.
More often than not, no.
Around here, people call it getting on the draw or getting on the check, but they have other names for it.
I think you could call it a scheme. You could call it a scam. You could call it fraud. I mean, there's different definitions for it.
Large scale.
Very large scale.
They began complaining to their bosses at the Social Security Administration 6 years ago after discovering that an outsized number of claims and some questionable medical evidence was being submitted by Eric Kahn, a flamboyant attorney whose face is plastered on billboards throughout the area and on local TV.
When Eric C. Kahn represents you, there will be no fear.
He runs the 3rd largest disability practice in the country out of the Eric C. Kahn Law Center, which is just off Route 23 in Stanville, Kentucky. It's a complex of several double wides welded together with an imposing replica of the Lincoln Memorial in the parking lot. Surprisingly, it has only one space for the disabled. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss Eric Kahn around here, isn't it?
You'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who doesn't know who he is in this area.
He calls himself Mr. Social Security, and some of his ads say guaranteed success. How can he make that claim?
He backs that up.
A slam dunk.
Pretty much.
That's a remarkable record.
Yes, it is.
Is he that good a lawyer?
You know,
no.
A lot of Kahn's success, they say, had to do with a particularly friendly disability judge, David Doherty, who sought out Kahn's cases and approved virtually all 1,823 of them, awarding $500 million worth of lifetime benefits to Kahn's clients. The decisions were based on the recommendations of a loyal group of doctors who often examined Kahn's clients right in his law offices and always endorsed them for the disability roles. Were most of the medical reports submitted by the same doctors?
Yes.
Yes, sometimes up to 13 to 20 reports a day.
I know when we counted 16 exams by the same doctor, all in one day, at his office.
And they were all approved?
They were all approved.
Were all those valid claims?
There's no way that you're going to have 100% of clients walk through your door and be disabled. 100% of claimants, there's no way.
We were hoping that given Eric Kahn's outgoing personality and love of publicity, he would be eager to talk to us, but that turned out not to be the case. At first, we were told he wasn't in the office. We said we'd wait.
Hey, take some pens, too. All right?
Okay, great. About an hour later, we got a call from his lawyer in Washington.
You know, we don't want to make it seem like, that he's hiding from us.
The lawyer said he'd try to coax Khan out of the office, and eventually he emerged.
I'm very much familiar with you. How are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Look, there's a lot of allegations out there about you that we wanted to talk to you about.
I understand. Well, I'm not normally a shy person, but I think it's probably best I speak in the legal realm rather than here. I know you all have come a long way, and I don't mean to be inhospitable, but I just think it's probably best right now.
You can't talk about your relationship with George Doherty or your incredible success in disability court.
Boy, that's tempting. Oh, I would love to comment on some of that. But no, sir, I really don't think I should right now.
Khan didn't want to go into it with Senator Coburn's investigators either. They've been quietly working on the case for 2 years, interviewing witnesses and poring over disability documents. That's why they asked us to protect their identities.
What did you find out in West Virginia and Kentucky?
Significant fraud.
Does the name Eric Kahn ring a bell?
Mm-hmm. I would tell you I wouldn't want him for a brother-in-law. And he's got a lot of money. And the American taxpayer paid him that money.
Is he breaking the law?
That's probably going to be determined by the Department of Justice.
Coburn says the report, to be released tomorrow, will show that Khan collected more than $13 million in legal fees from the federal government over the past 6 years, and that he paid 5 doctors roughly $2 million to sign off on bogus medical forms that had been manufactured and filled out ahead of time by Khan's staff.
Do you think what you found there is just an isolated case?
No. I mean, it may be one of the worst cases. It just shows you how broken it is. You take a good concept that's well-meaning, and then you don't manage it, you don't monitor it, Congress doesn't oversight it, and pretty soon you end up with places like in West Virginia, certain counties, where, you know, you're born to be on disability.
It should be pointed out that no one is getting rich off disability payments of $1,100 a month. It's a minimum wage income with Medicare benefits after 2 years. But each new case will eventually cost taxpayers, on average, $300,000 in lifetime benefits. For Marilyn Zahm, the disability judge from Buffalo, the high demand for it is a measure of the low prospects that still exist for millions of Americans.
People run out of unemployment insurance. They are not going to die silently. They're going to look for another source of income. It is not unusual for people, especially people over 40, to have some sort of an ailment or impairment. So they will file for disability benefits based upon that. For many of these people, the plant closed. There are no jobs in their communities. What are people supposed to do?
Some of these people are desperate people.
Absolutely desperate. I agree. But what you're really describing is our economy and the consequences of it, and we're using a system that wasn't meant for that because we don't have a system over here to help them, which means we're not addressing the other concerns in our society. And that's a debate Congress ought to have.